Hey, Jim. Thank you for being on the show. It's so nice to have you here. How are you doing today?
Oh, I appreciate it. Good morning. Of course, it's a little later for you.
That's right. Thank you so much for being here. And you see, Jay, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two main things. And I do this so often to the point where I think it has become my anthem because I say it so often. So, firstly, Jim, I want to thank you for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you invested in yourself. And oftentimes, Jim, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, some months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. I just walked past it. But you see, Jim, just recently, I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the tree. You see, the tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. And immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did. And when I did, it wowed me. Because now, the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it. Beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. You see, not just mangoes, but ripe mangoes. So it was a beautiful moment that day. I was so excited. Yes, now you're talking, Mango Tree. Now you're talking. This is it. I was really happy that very day. Now, my point is the fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing person that you are today. That alone has made it really impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you see you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, the impact your work is having. It's amazing. And I said to myself, I've got to benefit from this. And that's why you got the request from me. Thank you so very much for being here. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing I could do about it. Thank you so very much, dear. Appreciate you, man. Beautiful.
Well, that's a beautiful story. It really is.
Thank you.
So many times we look at ourselves or look at our situation and we see what we don't have, right? And that's part of the reason I share my experience as a drug addict and a dropout because at certain points in our life, no matter how little we have to take stock and say, well, I have something. And whatever we have, it sounds almost silly to say this, but whatever we have in the moment, that's what we have to work with. That's what we have. Those are the resources we have to take our first step. And when we look at it that way with appreciation, right, like you did with the mango tree, then we see that we have much more than we might have thought. And then we can start the journey to wherever we're going to go.
Beautiful. That's right. And I got that. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today, Jim, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Jim, I believe it takes the application of knowledge. And not just knowledge, but the application of it. And you see, Jim, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance. I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. The second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Jim on the show is for the sake of the listeners. Yeah, you see, Jim, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got a lot of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, important, and very good information, of which I'm totally convinced, Jim, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or professional journey. We are just so curious right now. We want to know how Jim got here. Then afterwards, I've got some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Jim, over to you.
It's funny because I think many speakers will understand this experience. I'm going to take you with me to the next event because not everybody thinks I'm amazing. And some of the things that we need to, right? Some of the things we need to talk about can be very contentious, especially when we're talking about things that are this important about keeping humanity in the age of Not so much the age of command and control leadership, because I do believe that that's over. Organizations that are not making that transition, which is really back to our roots as human beings, but if they're not making that transition, you're either dying or you're going too soon. Unfortunately, it can take a long time for that to happen. Throughout history, we see that same cycle. I like, your idea, your theme about the knowledge too. Knowledge, I maybe would substitute just one word there: awareness, right? Because like you said, there's so much information coming at us from all sides, 24/7 every day, right? And it's difficult for us to process that. That's part of the reason that we have such, globally, such an issue with mental health these days, right? People are just overwhelmed with all these issues and problems. We're dealing with our own problems. We're dealing with everybody else's problems too, and struggling with what our part can be in that. But awareness takes a little bit different angle, right? That's the process of looking in the mirror or being open to the experiences of the people around us, right? The closest to us. And the more we can do that, and we can stay tuned to that, to immediate, I don't want to say solutions, because life is, ongoing process of trying to find our way. So I don't think very many things find an ultimate solution. But that process of trying to improve, trying to make ourselves better, which I think is the best thing you can do for people around you, because you become more valuable. And just stay focused on what we can do here and now. So now we're back to that inventory, right? What do I have here and now? Who are the people I can influence here and now? People I can inspire, I can empower, I can guide. And if we all paid attention to that, I think we'd be okay. And now to answer your question directly, it all got started by accident, really. It came out of my experience as a drug addict. Part of my recovery process was my involvement in martial arts. And as I got more involved in martial arts, I started to discover a little bit more about myself. In fact, one of the masters I studied with, he said it so beautifully. He said, achieving a black belt is nothing more than achieving a good learning attitude. And specifically, he said, you've learned to learn about yourself. And now you're going to apply that process in life. And I've been blessed because many of the masters I studied with encouraged us. We weren't restricting the benefits of our practice to the dojo, to the practice hall. It was meant for us to make our lives better. One of them said, I remember one time, said, martial arts isn't to detract from your life, it's to enhance it, right? And so eventually people started asking me to share these ideas and these experiences out in the world. And that accidentally led me to writing a couple of books and getting on the speaking circuit, and now training organizations and workshops and whatnot too. So that's the very condensed short story about how all this got started. And it's still important because it's this journey that keeps me going most of the time in the right direction. I feel that this is one of the most important things that we can embrace, is making sure that we don't lose our humanity with all the challenges we have today. And the biggest ones, we talk a lot about the technological advancement, artificial intelligence, things like that. But there are also some ongoing threats too that I think have become bigger over the last few years. I talked specifically about divides, right? Cultural divides, generational divides, racial divides, gender divides. These are all things that we need to constantly be working on in order, because we're right, even in some of the most remote places we've worked in, and even in some of the smallest organizations, we live and work in a very, very diverse world these days. We work with people from all over the world. We work with people, and I think it just was reported that at least here in the States now, for the first time, we have places that have 5 generations working in the same room. That's a lot of differences to manage. And so that's why our focus on preserving our humanity, keep it human. I hope that answered your question. That was a long way around. I'm old, so it took a little while. Yeah, the signal broke up. So can you repeat that one more time? That's okay. I don't know that it's ever really been all that effective. When we study history, I'll make the distinction this way, and it's probably a simplistic way to look at it, but sometimes we need to reduce things to understand them, especially if they're complex. To me, a leader is someone with the ability to attract willing followers, right? And we could add someone who has the will to serve. And we look at that, and the words that we use, words that are featured on all our materials and our website: inspire, empower, guide. These are not just pretty words. I think you can tell already I'm not just a lollipops and puppy dogs kind of guy. These are disciplines. These are the most essential disciplines that a leader needs to adopt in order to connect with people on a human level and get the best out of them. I mean, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt now, people perform at their best when and only when their leaders, they know their leaders care, when their work has meaning, and when they have the chance to learn, grow, and develop. Now, we've been preaching that for a long time, and I learned it from my experience in the dojo as a sensei and trying to help people get to black belt and beyond, or whatever they're dealing with. But now it's very interesting because academic leadership experts are validating these things. And I didn't make it up either. This is ancient wisdom. It's ancient wisdom from all the great cultures. I mean, you study the philosophy, you'll find that same wisdom in the teachings in Asia, which I was very close to because of my martial arts, in Africa that I've learned through some of my friends there, right? The old stories, always the same story. The best leaders, most effective leaders, most genuine leaders are people who really care deeply about others and want to serve them, right? And they want to make their lives better. That's a leader. That's somebody they're going to follow willingly. Now, the opposite of that is a dictator. A dictator can get the job done. Now we're in command and control phase. A dictator can be very effective sometimes, especially when there's an emergency. Sometimes we turn to those people that can bark out orders effectively. But a dictator really gets the job done through fear, force, and coercion. That's the difference. That's the differentiation. All leaders, most leaders sometimes, if you have kids, you'll probably understand this. You have to become authoritative sometimes, right? First of all, you have to know what you're doing or people won't trust you. And you need sometimes to issue orders. But I learned this in a life and death situation. When I was a young man, I was a firefighter. And I can tell you from experience that even in a situation like that, we have to follow orders. Our lives depend on it. But we're very hesitant to follow the orders of a leader we don't trust, right? That leader has to have earned our trust, our loyalty, and our respect. Otherwise, we're not going to follow their orders. We're going to question them or be skeptical about them. So that's why it's so important. And of course, we can and we do spend hours and days and weeks, workshopping about this and talking about these things and making sure that it's not just philosophy, but that we're putting it to work every day. Roll up our sleeves and get the job done. That's why we keep talking about disciplines, right? But that's in a nutshell it. You choose any given moment, any given decision, any given situation. You choose either you're going to be a leader, or you're going to be a dictator. And I'm not preaching from the mountain. There are times we all fall into that role of dictator. We do it. The trick is, can we catch ourselves and correct course before we do too much damage? Because people do not like to be commanded by fear, force, and coercion, right? I mean, I'm sure you don't. Well, first of all, I just love what you just talked about, because too many people fall to the guru, right? I think you're spot on with that. That's a remarkable way to look at it. And I like the way that you framed it, a genuine leader. In fact, the definition, as I was taught of sensei, the best teacher is not the one who brings a student up to his own level. The best teacher is the one who teaches the student to surpass, right? To go beyond what we can achieve. That's the thing. And you've got to control the ego in order to do that. I think a good leader, a good teacher has to be confident for sure, or you have to at least work on that, all right, constantly, but also very humble. There's the balancing act, right? And to want to bring people to a better level, because ultimately we're talking about power too, your ability to act or perform effectively. And how does that grow? How does my power expand? Only by empowering others. Because as a leader, I can only accomplish so much myself. Any human being, right? We can only accomplish so much ourselves. When do we achieve the greatest things? Is when we get to transform me into we, get people working together. So we need to empower others. And by that, we become more powerful because we're able to get more done, especially when we can unite people and direct them. And I love what you just said. If you wanted to wrap it all up in one sentence, it's funny because I was first asked that a few years ago doing a television program, and I've used this ever since. It's difficult. There's so many different aspects of leadership, but they all come under this theme. Leadership is sharing. A leader shares. The rest of the conversation is about what we're willing to share and how we're going to do that. So everything we just broke down, right, can fit under that category. We're really talking about what are we willing to share? Our power, our authority, our knowledge, our wisdom, our respect, our trust, right? And this list can go on for pages and pages. Each of us has to decide, what are we willing to share, especially in the moment, situationally, right? And how are we going to do that? How are we actually going to implement that? Because believe me, I love philosophy. We sit down and enjoy a bottle of wine together. I could talk philosophy all night with you. But ultimately, we have to put this to work, right? We have to make sure that we're using it to affect positivity. And Yeah, that's not always all that exciting. People get bored with the hard work. Yeah, yeah. So, but that's it. That's what we need to do. It's nice to talk about these things. Like we go to a conference and everything. Everybody's smiling and clapping and all that stuff. That's good. Now we got to roll up our sleeves, get to work. Well, actually, I'll go one better than that. Right now, we're really promoting. This has been a dream of mine for years to get people together in one platform from all over the world. And so we launched the Keep It Human network. So I'll invite all you listeners to this network, and it's very simple to find. KeepItHuman.network. KeepItHuman.network. If people want to learn about how to, and I, as I told you when we were corresponding back and forth, we were supposed to tour Africa 2020 when COVID hit. I would love to come back. Come back. I haven't been there yet. I would love to renew that. We did a couple of virtual events. I found so many positive people there and so many positive leaders there that I'd like to do that. If you're interested in having me for speaking or anything like that, it's thehumancentricleader.org. So those are two places. In both places, you can download the newest book. Leave you with a final thought. I mean, the leadership is sharing, I think, I usually wrap things up with that, but let's throw another one out there. One of the greatest gifts I learned in my life as a martial artist was this one. And I think it's a perfect template for leaders because we can never be finished. We can never be satisfied with ourselves. The best leaders are always trying to learn, grow, develop. If nothing else, to be an example for others. How can you be telling other people they need to be improving if you're not improving yourself, right? So I'd say this: perfection is not a destination. It's a never-ending process. And that's something that I sincerely try to live by. Yeah. I think we're going to make T-shirts with that again. We had T-shirts a while ago. That helps us remember, right, when we put on the T-shirt. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for your hospitality. And sincerely, I hope to be able to visit you soon.